The kiss we didn't plan. She was my best friend, before a kiss changed everything. The kiss we didn't plan. June and I had a tradition for bad days, toast and jam at midnight on my living room floor, because chairs felt too formal for grief. We met freshman year when my roommate brewed beet juice in mason jars and called it medicine. June wordlessly handed me a granola bar and said, "You look like you need carbs and plausible deniability." She became my person before I had language for it. Pre-coffee texts, post-shift debriefs, emergency runs for lemon seltzer and sanity. Best friends was the tidy label. It fit, until it started catching on the drawer. The night everything tilted, the sky dumped warm rain without warning. June arrived dripping, hair plastered to her cheeks, hoodie clinging to her like a hug she hadn't consented to. I threw her a towel, she threw her keys toward the bowl and missed by a heroic margin. "I made 17 life mistakes today," she announced, collapsing onto the rug. "Only 17? I handed her toast so buttery it left thumbprints. "You're slacking." She bit, chewed, sighed from somewhere near her bones. My boss said pivot as a verb 6 times. I'm applying to be a lighthouse keeper. "You'd rock a pea coat," I said, sitting cross-legged across from her. Our knees bumped. They always did. The lamp hummed. Rain needled the window. I reached to tuck a damp strand behind her ear like I'd done 100 times. This time my fingers found the soft beat at her pulse and paused as if my hand had learned a new sense. June froze too. Her eyes flicked to mine, down to my mouth, back up so fast a reasonable person could have called it imagination. I have never been a reasonable person where June is concerned. "Today was awful," she said, voice lighter than it felt. "Top 10. "Top 5, I said, because I keep lists. The day her parents sold the house without telling her. The day my grandmother looked at me and couldn't find my name. The night June's ex returned her sweater with a note that said "You're too much" and I wanted to mail him a dictionary entry for lucky. "You always remember everything," she murmured. "Not everything." I swallowed. The room smelled like toast, rain, and a third thing I didn't have a word for yet. "Sometimes I forget the important parts." "Like what?" she asked, softer. "That you're here," I said. It happened like we'd both given the same secret instruction. She leaned forward. I did too. Our mouths met halfway, not fireworks, not a symphony, just relief, like the first full breath after you've been whispering for too long. Her hand landed on my wrist to steady herself. My pulse didn't get the memo. We pulled back an inch, then 2, our foreheads nearly touching, rain placing a thin wall between us and the loud, ordinary world. "Huh," she said. "Huh," I agreed, because language had become a blunt instrument. We didn't move for a minute. Then she laughed, small, disbelieving. "So, that happened." "Yep." "Was that panic?" Her eyes were serious. "Or was that, us?" "Not panic," I said too quickly, and something in her shoulders loosened. "Okay," she whispered, and let her pinky find mine on the rug, the lightest possible tether. "Then we have to talk." We did what we always do, ate toast first, then told the truth, badly and earnestly. We tried, and failed, to pretend we hadn't noticed anything for years, my hoodie collection mysteriously migrating to her place, her insistence on walking on the traffic side of the sidewalk, the time she brought me a plant and said, "It's thriving," and I felt weirdly complimented. I was so sure I'd ruin us if I said anything, she admitted, cheeks flushed. Like friendship was a glass table we'd shatter the second we put weight on it. "I get it," I said. "I've been treating my heart like it's made of thin ice for years. Turns out, maybe it's a dock." "Where boats tie up?" she asked, amused. "Where boats tie up," I confirmed. "And where people sit with their feet in the water and decide stuff." She groaned, laughing. "Only you would romance me with municipal infrastructure." We made rules. No pretending last night didn't happen. No pretending we understood what it meant yet, either. We would go slow. We would check in. We would protect the friendship like it was the ground everything else grew from. We would not, under any circumstances, let my roommate Liv find out before we did, because she'd throw us a surprise party with a banner and gluten-free cupcakes that tasted like penance. Lunch tomorrow? June asked, testing the ordinary weight of the question in this not ordinary moment. Lunch, I said. No pretending. Deal. We washed dishes shoulder to shoulder like the future was on the counter between the mugs and didn't need to be dried yet. When she left, she paused in the doorway, rain hissing behind her like applause. Good panic? She asked. Good panic, I said, and watched her run down my steps, hoodie dark with water, carrying something neither of us had words for yet. Lunch was the Vietnamese place with plastic menus and basil sprigs that wilted in the heat. June drummed her fingers on the table. We're not pretending, she reminded me, which I heard as please don't make me do this alone. I don't want to, I said, which I meant as I'm here. We ate pho too hot for confessions and made them anyway. I admitted I'd been rerouting every crush to nowhere for years because I didn't trust my map. She confessed that my laugh fixed her sometimes. We tripped over the word girlfriend and left it on the floor for later, both of us gazing at it out of the corner of our eyes like a beautiful animal that might spook if we turned too fast. Do you think we were always heading here? June asked, tapping her spoon against the bowl. I think I've been orbiting the long way around, I said, and watched her smile unfold, careful and bright. We didn't touch in the restaurant. But our knees found each other under the table and stayed. Our secret wasn't hiding, it was shorthand. June's head on my shoulder during a terrible rom-com was the same as always except it wasn't, because I knew what her shampoo smelled like and where the corner of her mouth turned stubborn when she was trying not to smile. We bought discount Valentine's chocolate and called it anti-holiday, then ate it in bed while insisting we were above capitalism and below labels. We went to the record store near campus and found the exact boy band album we'd sworn was ironic. At the listening station she handed me headphones and said, "Trust me," like she'd invented music. The chorus was about falling too close. I looked up, she was already watching me. On a Saturday that remembered to be spring, we took the train to the park, lay on the damp grass, and watched kites stumble and soar. June propped herself on one elbow. This feels dangerous, she said. Because it's easy? I offered. She nodded. Because it's easy. Maybe easy doesn't have to be a red flag, I said. Maybe it's a green one. She laughed. I hate that you're right. It's so impractical. In my defense, I'm not always right, I said. I once bought a futon on the internet. She kissed me, quick and sure, in broad daylight, and something inside me stopped bracing for the fall. Act 2 didn't announce itself. It arrived as habits. June's toothbrush migrated to the edge of my sink, my sweatshirt appeared in her closet like it had a sixth sense. We fell into small rituals, Tuesday walks by the river, Thursday pasta with too much garlic, Sunday morning coffee on the stoop with our knees touching, the city yawning awake around us. We also ran into the first hard edge. It was a Friday. My boss asked me to stay late to circle back on a campaign we'd already orbited into the ground. I texted June, looks like I'm trapped. 8? She didn't answer. I didn't worry, her phone dies on principle. At 7:30 I finally shut my laptop, half dead, and took the long way home past the bookstore with the cat who hates everyone equally. When I reached my building, I saw them, June and her ex, Sam, on the stoop. Sam had the posture of someone who plans to win arguments by narrating other people's feelings. June's arms were crossed. Sam was saying something with palms up like a generous saint. I stopped at the corner, invisible because the world was busy being unfair. Heat flashed under my skin. The story wrote itself in less than a second. She didn't answer. She met him, I am a fool. Then June's hand cut the air in a decisive slice. The conversation ended with a small, nationalized nod. Sam left. June sat hard on the step. I waited a breath, too, then walked up like I hadn't watched another version of my life try to take my place. Hey, I said, carefully casual. Her head snapped up. Relief flooded her face so fast it made me dizzy. Hey. Sorry. My phone died and then my past made an unannounced cameo. I saw. I sat beside her. Do you want to narrate or nap? Narrate, she said, picking at a splinter on the railing. He wanted to say he was wrong. About me being too much. About a lot. He said he's working on himself. I said, great. Keep doing that. And then I told him I'm with someone. She met my eyes, steady. I didn't say your name because it felt like handing him something sacred. But I said the truth. A strange, precise joy bloomed under my ribs. How do you feel? Like I slammed a door and opened a window at the same time. She blew out a breath. And like I need your terrible tea immediately. My tea is artless but sincere, I protested, already standing. Come on. We made sincerity in mugs and sat on the floor because chairs are for people with less to figure out. June leaned against the couch and let her head fall onto my shoulder with a weight I recognized as trust. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding since the corner. Next week, she said against my sleeve, can we tell Liv? And maybe Eli? I want a world where I'm not editing our sentences. Yes, I said, which I meant as I'm here, we're real. Telling people turned out to be less dramatic than my anxiety predicted, probably because our friends had been waiting for us to catch up to the plot. Liv clapped, Eli said, finally, like he was tired of pretending we were cousins. My mother, on FaceTime, said, do you want me to send the Tupperware back with the label, girlfriend's bonnet? I said, please don't, which she took as, absolutely yes. June's sister squealed. June's dad mailed us an article about sharing finances because love makes parents forget you can Google without their help. The only surprise was my brother, who asked carefully, but what if you break up and then who gets custody of me? We promised joint, and he relaxed. The first time June reached for my hand in public, farmer's market, peaches, sun, we both glanced up, braced for the sky to fall. It didn't. A woman selling basil slipped us an extra sprig like a blessing. June tucked it into my back pocket and grinned. I thought, ordinary miracles should count more than the firework ones. I thought, I will fight anyone who tries to make us apologetic about being happy. We also discovered that love is a mirror with receipts. Being best friends doesn't teach you everything about conflict. June likes to process feelings like laundry, as soon as they're dirty. I like to stack them in a pretty basket and pretend baskets are the same as solutions. We had our first real fight about dishes and email and whether one night of silence means doom. She stood in my kitchen with her hands on her hips, furious and scared. I stood there with my arms crossed, defensive and petty. It wasn't about dishes. Tell me the story you're telling yourself, she said finally, softening. I wanted to laugh at the therapist phrase and couldn't. That if we don't get this right, I lose you, I said, raw and shocked to hear it out loud. Her face shifted the way the sky does when a cloud moves and light finds you again. I'm not a test you pass, she said, stepping forward. I'm the person who does the dishes with you while we figure out the test. I wanted to argue. I wanted to crawl under the table and stay there forever. I chose the third option, I said, okay, and meant it. We wrote new rules on a sticky note and stuck it to the fridge, no mind reading. Ask before assuming. Hug before washing knives. We were ridiculous and earnest and messily human, we were learning. Being with June didn't make me less myself. It made me more, like someone had turned a dimmer switch the right way. Midway, my grandmother's memory came like the tide, and on a windy Tuesday it went. She sat in a sterile waiting room and asked me if I was the nurse. It broke something I'd been pretending was unbreakable. I called June and said, I don't know how to be brave, and she said, good. Don't. I'll do brave today and you can borrow it. She did. She brought soup and silence. She sat with me on the floor while I cried into her t-shirt, ruining the fabric and not the moment. She said, we can be sad and lucky at the same time, which felt like someone reprogramming my heart in the best way. After, I played piano in the dark while she washed dishes with a care that made me want to write a sonnet about sponges. Grief didn't go because we loved each other. But it learned to share the room. Late summer, the city remembered to exhale. We started talking about moving in together without making it a referendum on forever. Practical questions disguised as vows: whose sofa, which neighborhood, whether I could survive without the terrible toaster I'd had since college. We took long walks at dusk and made lists on our phones like adults with a plan: savings, cleaning schedules, swear jar if either of us said pivot. But the closer we got to making it official, the louder the old fear got. The night before we signed a lease on a too-small place with good light, I lay awake hearing every creak like a warning. Every story I'd told myself about ruining the best thing in my life came back wearing reasonable pants. I slipped out of bed at 4 a.m. and sat on the kitchen floor with a glass of water like it could anchor me. June found me there, hair asleep tangle, sweatshirt sliding off one shoulder. She sat beside me and didn't speak for a minute, which is one of the reasons I love her. She knows when words are just more noise. I'm scared, I confessed, staring at the scuffed cabinet. The good kind and the bad kind are fighting. She rested her head on my shoulder. Me too. You? I said, startled. I've never built this before, she said simply. I've assembled the IKEA version with 3 missing screws. I want the solid wood kind. I want to make it with you. She took my hand. We can be scared and still sign the lease. I laughed, watery. Is that our vows? It's our pre-lease oath, she said solemnly. Now and forever, or at least the next 12 months, and then we reevaluate because rent. We signed. We moved. We discovered we argue best after snacks. We learned that buying a rug together is weirder than telling your parents you're in love. We hosted friends with too much hummus and exactly enough laughter. We slept under a window that let the morning in like a polite guest. We put our toothbrushes in the same cup and did not die. The test we didn't expect came early fall when June's boss dangled a promotion that was really a relocation wrapped in a raise. 6 months in another city 3 states away with the promise of fast-track leadership. She brought it home like a wounded animal, hopeful and already apologizing. I'd hate it, she confessed, pacing. But I'd be good at it. And sometimes the world only hears you if you wear the right title. I sat with my selfishness like a hot coin in my palm. What do you want? I asked, because wanting isn't always the same as choosing. I want to stay, she said, relief and grief sharing a syllable. But I'm afraid I'll be the girl who stayed and then resented it. I took a breath that felt like a cliff. Then go, I said, throat tight. 6 months isn't forever. We can be 2 people with a window between them for a while. Are you sure? She asked, eyes searching mine like there was a wrong answer that could save us. No, I said, because lying here would rot the floorboards under us. But I'm committed. She cried. I did too. We made a new version of our rules: schedules, visits, don't fight on FaceTime if we can fight in person, mail each other stupid postcards, send pictures of dinner even if it's cereal. We kissed like we were signing our names. She left on a gray Sunday. I wore her hoodie for 3 days and smelled like a memory. We learned quickly that long distance is just relationship with lousy Wi-Fi and more adjectives. It wasn't tragic, it was work. It was also a gift. I learned the shape of my days without her inside them and realized I still like my own company. She learned where to place boundaries so work couldn't eat her. We missed each other so precisely we could have drawn the lines on a map. On a random Wednesday in month 4, my grandmother called me by my name and asked about June. I sat down on the kitchen floor and cried the hopeful kind, while June laughed in my ear and said, "Tell her I said hi, and that the lighthouse job is still open if this promotion doesn't pan out." June came home in the first snow. The city wore a soft filter, our window glowed, we chose each other like it was both new and inevitable. She turned down the relocation permanent track with an email so gracious her boss had no idea she was saying no to the version of her life that had kept her up at night. We celebrated with pancakes at midnight. Best friends does not cover the feeling when someone returns not because they have to, but because they choose your kitchen light. Act 3 is supposed to be the resolution, but resolutions feel like the part where people say happily ever after and roll credits. We didn't roll anything. We lived. On an ordinary Sunday in winter, we visited my grandmother at the care home. June sat beside her and hummed while I played 3 songs my grandmother used to hum while she made soup: music as mnemonic device, love as bridge across fog. Halfway through, my grandmother reached for June's hand and said, "You take good care of my girl." June squeezed back. "Always," she said, and it landed like a vow approved by time. We walked home in the blue cold, exhaling small clouds. "I love you," I said without rehearsing, because the moment had unzipped something. I'd said it before in 1,000 sideways ways. "Your mug is clean. Text me when you're back. I bought the basil. Stay." This version felt like writing my name clearly on a form that mattered. June didn't stop walking. She smiled into her scarf. "I love you too," she said, as if she'd been carrying the words around waiting for me to want them. Spring leaned in. The basil lady at the market saved us starts. Our corner cafe learned our order. We fought better, apologized faster, laughed the same. We adopted a plant we couldn't identify and pretended that was a metaphor. It grew white blossoms that smelled like a secret and made us both Google Citrus Care Zone 6. We failed to keep it alive. We tried again. We learned you can get better at tending. On a day that smelled like rain deciding to be generous, I came home to find our living room floor cleared, the rug rolled back. June stood in the middle with socks on, sheepish and excited. "I know we're not dance people," she said, but she held out a hand. "Will you dance with me anyway?" We swayed to a playlist that knew our names, offbeat and goofy and full of grace. Halfway through, she spun me, badly. I laughed. We tripped into each other and didn't fall. That is the whole point, I thought. Not precision. Not performance. Balance you fix together as you go. "Do you ever miss before?" she asked, forehead to mine, breath tickling. "When it was just, undefined?" "Sometimes," I said, choosing the only answer that has ever made us stronger. "I miss the innocence. I don't miss the guessing." "Me neither," she said, and kissed me like punctuation, the mark that keeps a sentence honest. We threw a dinner for our friends on a long table we borrowed from Eli and pushed against the windows. Everyone brought something: salad, pie, a ridiculous loaf of bread that looked like a sea creature. Liv made a banner anyway. It said "We're proud of you," which covered everything from queerness to not burning the garlic. It felt like our world had kept its promises to us, or maybe we had finally kept our promises to ourselves. After everyone left, we stood in the quiet, ankle-deep in paper napkins and joy. June leaned on the windowsill and looked out at the street, where the lamplight made halos on wet pavement. "I used to think love arrived with trumpets," she said. "Now I think it's a key you don't realize you've been carrying. One day you look down and it's there, warm from your pocket." "Does it open anything good?" I asked, coming to stand behind her, hands on her hips. "It opens this," she said simply, tipping her head back toward me, the room messy with evidence of being loved, the plant we were trying to keep alive, the window reflecting us back to ourselves. We didn't get engaged. We didn't move somewhere dramatic. We did something harder. We stayed. We did laundry and grief and joy and meetings that could have been emails. We ruined a pan and learned to soak, not scrub. We told the truth even when it meant sitting in silence until the right words arrived. We kissed in kitchens. We passed the butter at midnight. We chose, again and again, to be best friends inside the love story, not before it or after it, but right at the center where the ordinary lives. On an evening in late June, her month, appropriate, we took our toast to the roof and watched the sun pretend it would never leave. "To bad days," June said, raising her slice. "To good panic," I said, and clinked bread. "To the kiss we didn't plan," she said, and stole a bite of mine. "To the life we do," I answered, and kissed her, the city humming below like a chorus we'd finally learned to sing. Epilogue. The year rolled forward in the quiet way years do, one cup of tea, one rainstorm, one Sunday at a time. If you looked at us from outside, nothing monumental had changed, two women sharing an apartment, groceries, laughter. But inside it, everything had. We didn't live in the anxious territory of, what if this ruins us, anymore. The kiss that once felt like a breach had become a cornerstone. Every choice since then, telling our friends, surviving distance, signing that too expensive lease, fighting over dishes and making up with sticky notes, was proof that the foundation held. One night, almost a year to the day after the first kiss, we returned to our original ritual. Toast at midnight, jam smudged on fingers, sitting cross-legged on the rug. June raised her slice like a champagne glass. "To bad days," she said, grinning. "To good panic," I echoed. And, she added, softer now, eyes finding mine, to best friends who became something braver. The lamp hummed. The city slept. I leaned in, kissed her, deliberate, steady, the opposite of accidental. Not the kiss we didn't plan, but the kiss we kept choosing. And that was the whole point. We weren't rewriting history or waiting for fireworks. We were writing the small, steady sentences of a life together, ordinary and miraculous, messy and true. The kind of story that doesn't end. The end. Thanks for listening. What's your favorite friends to lovers story? Books, movies, or real life? Drop it below in the comments. And if you loved this story, hit like so I know you want more WLW slice of life stories.